everybody. Welcome back to the Prime Pediatric Podcast. I am your host, of course, Dr. Skip Wyss, Bowtie Chiropractor, and I am here with the amazing, most wonderful person I know in the content creation space, the chiropractic content creator, Ms. Jessica Mercer. Jessica, how are you today? It's so nice to see you again.
Oh my gosh, I'm doing great today, and it's amazing to see you again too. I'm honored to be back on your podcast for another round.
I am super excited because the last round we just put together was for my birthday bundle so people could actually get a dose of what you do and you could give them some ideas. But today, over this next, probably going to be a two-part series here, guys, for you listening, is Jessica and I are going to talk about marketing. And one of the biggest things is content creation, how to choose the right content creator, how to create a bond with them, how to know that what they're talking about is actually going to make sense for you. Because we've talked about this before, Jessica, but let's just dive right into this. I find it very, very hard at times to hire somebody to create content for me or for our office here at the Prime Family Chiropractic Centers. And the reason why is because I find that a lot of people can't write how we write or think like chiropractors. What do you feel is one of the biggest bridges to go over, the biggest gap to bridge over from chiropractor to content creator?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when we did meet, that was one of the first things we connected over was me understanding your brand and understanding Dr. Julie. So I think, you know, between chiropractors and content creators, the biggest challenge is actually understanding one, the factual information, and then two, having the ability to take the factually correct information and put it in a way that makes sense for the reader, but also embodies the practice because as we all know, not every practice is the same. So the person needs the ability to be both like academically inept and socially inept. And that's a big bridge to build.
It is. And I feel that from your perspective, what I found really, really interesting is getting to know you from your side. You're kind of a big nerd. And I think it's really cool. Like, and I don't mean that negatively. I mean that very, very endearing. And we would say that about a lot of chiropractors that love the science of what we do, right? And a lot of healthcare providers that love the science of what they do. And it's hard to find a content creator that actually wants to learn the science and learn what makes that chiropractor tick. So what makes you like what kind of I feel you have a leg up on everybody. Is it because of just life experiences? Is it because of like what happened to your dad? Like, why don't we start there and go through a little bit of background as to what really keyed you into understanding this?
Yeah, for sure. I am a total nerd, and the brain is fascinating to me, the body is fascinating to me, and it's always been that way. But specifically, when my daughter was born, and then most recently when my dad had grown even more in love with the body. So, as a kid, you could always find me nose deep in a Ripley's Believe It or Not, just looking at these unbelievable, fascinating things. And I would just geek out on it, man. My bookshelf was nonfiction. I was the weirdest kid you would find. And as I grew up, like it's just always been my thing to read and to learn. And so the body has always been amazing. I grew up in a first responder family, and I would ask my dad every time he'd come home from work, Dad, what calls did you have? Like, tell me the gory stuff. Like, I want to know everything. And it's just always been a passion of mine. And so when I was pregnant with my daughter, and when my daughter was born, she had a unique situation, fibromatosis coli, and I had obviously never heard of it before. And my neighbor at the time was a chiropractor. And she very gently nudged me into, getting exposed to chiropractic for infants. And I was like everybody else at the time. My understanding of chiropractic was crack and pop. And I'm like, no, you're not going to touch my baby with your cracking and popping. Um, and so once, I let her in, which was really, she had to help because I had nowhere else to go. I was done. I started to see the impact that it had on my daughter, not just physically. She was, yes, able to turn her head more, but it was like this light was turning on. And my daughter is brilliant. I know some of that is innate, but I also know that a lot of it is because we've taken the time to have her adjusted and keep up with what we're supposed to do with the chiropractor. And so watching her develop is only like lit the nerd fire with me even more. And then when my dad got brain lesions, very unfortunate situation, completely unexpected. As soon as he was let out of the hospital, I said, we're going to the chiropractor, and his neurology team was against it. He advised us against it. They said, well, there's a lot of really, sensitive nerves at the base of the head. And I said, yeah, that's why we're going.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
My dad's one of those stories where he should not be where he is now. He should not be doing the things he's doing, and he should not have recovered at all, and especially as quickly as he did. So, just my past experience and the way that I've seen it move my family has just deepened my passion for chiropractic and desire to understand it.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. The story behind your daughter with fibromatosis coli, and then with your dad getting brain lesions. You kind of have two different things going on, right? Muscular issue, and then you have an actual nervous system issue. But both,
Mhm.
that nerve system is what communicates and controls everything. And I'm going to come back at you really quick. I will tell you right now, it is 100% your daughter's inborn innate intelligence. So this is what makes amazing. And the chiropractic care that you're getting for your daughter, remember, we're just a tool that allows that innate to express itself and function. And it allows your daughter's brain to talk to her body at the most utmost beautiful clarity it can possibly run, to run that perfect symphony that's called life and every cellular function that's going on with her, that makes her as beautiful and wonderful as what she is. And I can tell you right now, she's a mirror image of you and your husband. And that innate intelligence that you two put together, that came together 50-50 when those chromosomes collided and that X and that Y came together, remember, as soon as that happened, she had inborn innate intelligence that put herself together from those two cells. And that's what makes her beautiful. And the fact that you take her to a chiropractor is what allows her to flow and be even more amazing, because she lives her life interference free. And I just, like, you're an amazing mom. I know your story. You're a close friend of mine. Like, I know a lot about you. And this is what makes you special, because you lived through this. What were some of the sides now that you've become an amazing content creator for chiropractors? I'm telling you guys right now, like, if you've seen any posts that have come out from Prime Family Chiropractic Centers over the last 5 to 6 months, a lot of this is Jessica's creations, and it's her brain, it's the way she works. And granted, we make her job easy because we're really good here, and our patients love us and they love giving us fun reviews, and they love talking about us. But she writes some pretty amazing stuff that the public in the outside world, the community of Green Bay, gets a chance to see. So Jessica, what really makes you geek out about chiropractic?
What really makes me geek out about chiropractic? I feel like that's like a broad but also specific question. That was the
Yeah,
challenge.
it is.
Yeah. So specifically, what makes me geek out about chiropractic? I can't necessarily pick one thing. If I had to, I would say just how, in my perception and the way that I choose to learn about it and communicate my clients do, it's completely, we focus a lot on the nervous system. And I just think it's fascinating that we, as a content creator and as a chiropractor working with families, are shifting the perspective of what people think chiropractic is by educating them on how chiropractic is impacting the nervous system and the function of the body. And that is what fascinates me, is that nervous system, how it controls everything, how everything communicates with one another, and how chiropractic really is like the orchestrator of all of that.
It is. Yeah, it's a conductor. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're working with this and you're creating content for Kairos, where do you think the communication level needs to be at right now? We're in a hyper stress society, a society that has come through 2 years, 2.5 years of just absolute healthcare nightmare. And now they're finally coming out, and now they're faced with another aspect of finances changing with the recession and all sorts of just doom and gloom. But how do we
Mm.
communicate to effectively talk to our communities so they know that we still love them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. In the last 2.5 years, I mean, even as you're a parent, I'm a parent, we know the stress that's been put on our kids, and then that reflects back onto us, and then we're stressed, and stress changes the way that we think and the way that we perceive information, right? And so that has to adjust with the way that you or your content creator is making content for your practice. So whereas before, we could get away with some really quirky educational things about, what's a subluxation and, what is this and what is that. Now it's about connecting with the people so that they can trust you after a time when they cannot trust anything or
Yeah,
anyone.
right.
So those emotional connections.
So when we're running into the emotional connections of things, the old adage in marketing and talking was always to tell your story and tell the
Mhm.
chiropractor, but tell your story, your personal story. Do you think that that still rings true today? And do you think that people still have to resonate with your story as a chiropractor or service provider in order to really want to do business with you and trust you?
Yeah. And I think probably even more now than ever before, because people want to trust you. You have to show who you are and what your brand is for people to get that insight. So I would say actually arguably now more than ever, it's important to develop a persona behind a business or a service business especially so that people can get to know the person behind it.
Thank you for a second. So when we're talking about this personal branding becoming irrelevant, it's a serious issue. So what do you think from a chiropractic perspective and from yours from a content perspective when we're bringing personal branding into it, where should a chiro actually start? I know we talked about origin story, which is key, but do you think just repeating the origin story over and over and over again, like basically beating it into
Mm.
submission is where we start?
No, I definitely think at some point in your social media life, you should post your origin story, but I do feel like that is way overused. And when people hear share your story, share about you, build a personal brand, that's exactly where everyone's mind. Well, let me just say why I'm a chiropractor. Let me just say where I went to school or what my specific niche is. But the reality is your personal story, your personal brand is, I mean, everything about you. And so, for example, I know that with you guys in your practice, you guys support veterans. That's part of your personal brand. So when we're talking about, your practice and the things that you support, we're going to mention veterans. That's important to you. That's important to Dr. Julie. So that has to play a role in that personal branding. That doesn't come up with why you became a chiropractor, I would imagine. I've heard your story. It doesn't involve veterans, but it's what's important to you. So instead of just focusing on that chiropractic story, if people can take a step back and realize that their personal brand is all encompassing, the way you speak, the way you dress, the way you talk to people, your the things you're passionate about, that's all encompassing and more powerful than your chiropractic story.
I agree with you 100%. So when we go into this, do you feel that Cairo? So there's an old adage. And I'll be honest with you, I've had a lot of people, coaches, and very good coaches say you should never get too personal with a patient. You should never get too personally involved. And I understand that. I understand friendships and the line that can get drawn and crossed, which shouldn't happen. But you should also be sharing more personal stories about yourself. They need to get to know who you are. So, do you think that there's a fine line that you can draw, or can these Kairos go kind of whole ham on this and just start talking about their entire personal life from their times with their children to what it's like to be a dad or a mom? Do you think that that's a good avenue for them to go down as well and just be as real and raw as possible?
I mean, it really depends on what your brand is, right? And what you're trying to show as your brand. So if your brand is total sports chiropractic, then go hard on, you being active, your recovery, what supplements you take or your nutrition. But if you are a family practice and your ideal target is family driven people, then absolutely go as hard as you can with your family. They want to see the way that you're interacting with your own kids because that's going to reflect how you interact with kids in your practice. They're going to want to see that you're, living what you're preaching because otherwise, you're just standing up there telling them what to do and you're not doing it yourself. Those kinds of things are what's going to set you apart from any other practice in your area. When you go hard with the personal stuff and connect with people, it's their little peek door into your life. And people need to look into your life because we're just nosy beings as humans. And we that's how we connect with people. So to answer your direct question, of course there's a line, right? Like we can't put all on social media and it's, if you're out partying, obviously don't put that, but you can open up and you can let people into your personal life and you should let people into your personal life.
Do you think chiropractors now this is do you think chiropractors benefit or hurt themselves when they start posting extremely polarizing content? This isn't a leading question. I'm looking for just what do you think from your perspective of being a content creator and understanding how social media works? Do you feel that we hurt ourselves or do we benefit ourselves when we become very polarizing on certain viewpoints?
I think that if you as a person stand behind your belief and that's what you are willing, if you're willing to accept that you may lose current patients or B, deter potential patients. If you can accept that, then it is actually beneficial for you to get that polarizing aspect. Dr. Steph Libbs does it amazing on Instagram. She's someone who really stands behind her beliefs and everything that she says. And what happens is, I imagine her practice is full of people who align with her ideation and her thoughts. And so she's working with the people that she really wants to versus the people who, may not have the same ideas. So, of course, do things respectfully. Follow the rules of social media. Don't get banned because then you're just going to be really upset anyway. But when you take a stand, there are people who are going to be happy about that and look up to you. So
And I think,
I believe in a stand.
sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead, Jessica.
No, I was going to say I believe in standing up for what you believe in, even if it's a little bit causing some altercation. And from a marketing standpoint, honestly, engagement is engagement, right? So you ruffle some feathers with something that people disagree with, you're getting yourself out there.
Mhm.
You
Hey, it worked for Kim Kardashian over a decade ago.
know?
Like they say, like, negative media is still publicity, right? Negative publicity is still publicity. People are still learning about you, even if they're hating on you or don't like you. They're mentioning you, which makes a big difference, right? I would say my word of advice on this for chiros listening and anybody in the service profession: stay within your laws, know what you can and cannot post, and what's within your ethical way to post it. If you're going to take an anti stance on anything when it's allopathy related, understand what your scope is and where you can actually take the stance and what you can say. And then I would take it right up to the line of what you can and cannot say. I have no issue with that. And I honestly just wanted you to know, because at times I'm told, hey, Skip, get raw with people, tell them how you really feel. And at other times with my community, I don't really want to push my views on certain people because I don't want them to feel polarized. I don't want them to feel like they're not welcome. I'm probably one of the most welcoming people you'll ever meet, no matter where you stand on things. It's just that I have strong beliefs in certain areas, but I'm never going to counter project them onto you and make you feel extremely uncomfortable. Now, on the flip side of that, there is something about being just vanilla versus standing out and making harder, more rash comments. So I thank you so much for that background on that, because I think that's super, super helpful. So when Kairos continue on down this road and they're going to start taking massive leaps into standing out, creating their own brand, do you think there's a line between Kairos talking about their lifestyles, or do you think it's okay for them to talk about their lifestyle and how they live from both a monetary perspective, from the house and the cars and the how can I put this, the actual material possessions versus where their head stands and in their faith and with their philosophies on life? Where do you think is there a fine line between that as well?
Well, and that's something we talk a lot about in the Black Diamond Club. You and I are both members. I know you get coached by Sean and Lacey, and there's definitely varying opinions on that. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to that personal brand you're creating. How can it translate into your business, and who are you trying to attract? So, yes, you can have, a strong faith and a really nice house, and you can talk and show about both because they mesh to be you as your personal brand, right? And so always bringing it back to your practice and how it can help grow your practice, and the content is key. You don't want to just be posting flashy photos or things that are irrelevant to the practice. But if it speaks to your ideal client, if it speaks to you as a person and your brand, then it is strategically used, can be really great for your content. I'm trying to think of like a specific example of how we could use something like, let's say, oh, I have an example. You travel and teach people. That's like something you're really excellent at. Okay, a photo of you traveling private to go teach other chiropractors posted on your practice's page is going to be really powerful because it's showing your practice members that you are competent and amazing and incredible and able to go teach other people. So of course, as consumers, they're going to trust you even more.
Mhm.
So yeah.
See that? Yeah, and it's a tie-in, right, of what I do, who I am. what I stand for as a person and what I get to do. And I think chiropractors should embrace that entire aspect. Some live a much more extravagant lifestyle, and some don't, and that's okay. And it's totally the brand that they want to project, I feel, and it comes across, but it needs to come across in everything they do. I think that is 100%. If you want to be 100% authentic with your community, with your patients, it has to come across in everything you do. You can't just half it. You can't be the guy that wears bow ties and dress shirts and looks nice, and then they catch you out in public and you look 180 degrees different.
Yeah.
That's not okay. Like, that doesn't fit it. Then they're wondering who's the dude in the office and who's the guy they see at the grocery store.
Bumming in a t-shirt.
Yeah, like, I wear t-shirts, but like there's a lot to that. Like, there's a lot to me and my brand and what I do, and it's very complex, but it's what I love and it's who I am, and it's 100% authentic to me. And are there days that I don't want to wear a bow tie? Yeah, there are plenty of days where I'm like, yeah, I'm not wearing a bow tie. But whenever I'm with the public, whenever I'm doing appearances, it's always on. And the reason why is because this is me. I am the bow tie chiropractor. So it's creating that brand and that ethos around it that goes 100% with it all the time. And it's the same thing with branding your office. So Jessica, this has been really, really awesome starting off on this nice, easy start point for chiropractors. So going forward, what do you feel is just a really simple way for chiros to start actually putting themselves out there? Is it just making daily Instagram posts? How often do you think they need to be posting? How often do you think they need to have their story in front of people?
Good question. And so that's one of those questions, it's like a gray area answer, right? So statistics say posting 3 to 5 times a week is best. What I've seen is posting consistently in a way that you can do authentically and well best. And so that looks different for every person, right? But if I were to say, hey, let's start you off on a social media, path right now, you're going to want to do something called like an engagement booster. And so that's really where, we're going to get into those first few posts that you do. You're going to be sharing your story, not just your chiropractic story, but really like warm your audience up. So the first 3 posts, maybe the first week, you're warming your audience up. And then, you're rolling into some of that content that's like sharing proof, right? You're sharing testimonials, you're sharing your past that you've had with people. There's no cookie cutter way to do it for each practice. It really depends on the practice and where you're at and your social media and how active you've been in the past. I don't feel like I have a great answer for this one.
Well, it's tough, right? It's a gray area. It's just like marketing. Some things work and some things don't work. I think the 3 to 5 post rule is very, very good. Hell, I've heard people say you need to post twice a day for 35 or 45 days, and then go down to once a day for the next 6 months, go down to once a day, and create that persona, that communication aspect. Because let's just look at this from a really smart way of looking at it. Any form of your social media post that you're putting out there is a form of engagement, and your clients, your community is perceiving it, reading it, and developing a relationship with you. Whether it's a positive relationship that they agree with, or maybe a negative relationship that they don't agree with, either way, they are perceiving and creating a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one of the most important parts, because the whole thing about being a chiropractor, in my mind, is being in relationship with my community. Whether it's good, bad, ugly, it doesn't matter. It's the relationships that I can establish. Most of them, 95%, will always be good because that's just who I am. Some will just might get negative, and that's okay too. But understanding you got to take the great with sometimes the not so great and understand that. So Jessica, this has been an amazing first part to this. Everybody tune in next week. We are going to be going over now how to vet and understand and take on the right type of social media planner and who can actually create content for you. So Jessica, thank you so much for coming on, and stay tuned next week, guys, for the second part of this. You're going to absolutely love it. Thank you, Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you, Skip. Thanks for having me.
You're really welcome.